Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Sejuani Jungle. They're pretty set in stone, man. I suppose you could have a variation where you would run Unsealed Spellbook at a higher MMR in which you're in a farming matchup. With the Unsealed Spellbook, you gain access to extra summoner spells in exchange for not having Aftershock. Sejuani's utility with this is a bit lower as she's a champion that has to go in, and then if she's engaging and doesn't have Aftershock, she's inevitably squishier. But I think you could run this into particular team comps, even though I never see it. And I probably never see it because only often people play Sejuani. But anyways, the runes for Sejuani, the most dominant one is going to be Aftershock, as Aftershock is going to give you extra stats. And in the jungle, really no other rune is going to give you good value. The reason you wouldn't run something like Predator is because you could have like Predator, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, Zombie Ward, any of these. You could have something like this, even though you could have access to more damage early, and then potentially better ganks with Predator. The damage would fall off. You would have to have successful ganks to get value out of the rune, and then mid to late game, which is where Sejuani really comes online, you don't have Aftershock, so basically you just don't survive in team fights. All for like 2 extra ganks and a little bit of damage on them. You'd be like a really bad Gragas at that point. So yeah, the only keystone that really works for Sejuani is going to be Aftershock. With Aftershock, it's going to put you in the resolve tree. Aftershock, after you immobilize an enemy champion, you increase your armor and magic resist by 35 plus 80% of your bonus armor and magic resist by 2.5 seconds. And then you deal a little bit of damage around you, and that damage scales off your level and then your bonus health, which is basically all Sejuani's getting is bonus health from her items. And then Sejuani makes really good use out of Aftershock because whenever you engage, you're on top of the enemy champion, and then you're really likely to get the extra damage off, and that damage becomes pretty significant in combination with the new Cinder Hulk, or the new Balmy Cinder, I should say. You can end up dealing a lot of damage with Sejuani. The Aftershock isn't to really block the damage on the target that you're engaging on, because since you're CCing them, it's not like they're retaliating damage because they're stun locked. It's more so whenever you're diving onto multiple enemy champions, that's when you really get the value out of Aftershock. And since Sejuani is effectively an engaged support that's played in the jungle, Aftershock goes a long way on her because it gives you that survivability from the backline of enemy champions, of the enemy champion that you engaged on. So with Aftershock, you're put in the resolve tree. I think your best option in the second row is going to be Font of Life. If you were to run something like Demolish, like, yeah, you could get like 2 tower plates, and that's going to be shared with like 1 or 2 champions, so you're going to get like 60 gold from that. Or you could run Font of Life, which whenever you impair the movement of enemy champions, you mark them for 4 seconds, and then ally champions who attack the marked enemy heal for 5 plus 1% of your max health over 2 seconds. So with that, you just effectively give your team a little bit more health whenever you're fighting, which is super useful, as whenever your team's trying to follow up on your engage, they're probably running into some AoE abilities, and then their initial hits on the enemy that you've CC'd is going to heal them a little bit. So it works really well, and it's just a pretty free rune, as nothing else in the row is that useful for Sejuani. In the third row, really your only option is conditioning or bone plating. Conditioning giving you +9 armor and magic resist at 10 minutes, and then also increasing your armor and magic resist by 5%. And with that, in combination with Aftershock, it's giving you more stats. In combination with her passive, it's giving you more stats. And in combination with her entire build, it's just giving you way more stats. And to exchange that all for bone plating is pretty crazy, especially since Sejuani's a farming jungler early. Unless you're playing against a jungler that can invade you, there's really no value out of bone plating. Even if the enemy jungler can invade you, you're better off avoiding it or like withstanding it through better pathing than you would be with bone plating. With bone plating, it gives you more effective HP early. So let's say an Elise is at your red buff after you've done 3 camps, and then she just full combos you from the Fog of War. You would block a bit of that damage, and then that's the only value out of the rune. Versus the super hard scaling you get from conditioning, the free stats that you get at a time in which you're completing your jungle item as well. So you're getting like a little under a cloth armor and a lot under a no magic mantle, but still about 300 gold's worth of stats, and then the 5% increase that goes so far with your build path. So that's always going to be your best rune every single time. Bone plating man, you'd really have to be taking a lot of early fights to get value out of this, comparatively. And then it's like, how do you even end up in that situation? For the fourth rune, your best option is going to be Overgrowth. Overgrowth is pretty similar to Conditioning. It gives you a little more scaling. With Overgrowth, you absorb life essence from monsters or enemy minions that die near you, permanently increasing your maximum health by 3 for every 8. And when you've absorbed 120 monsters or enemy minions, you gain an additional 3.5% maximum health. So this gives you, geez, about like 230 health at most stages of the game. And once it's fully stacked, and then with that, again, it's just more free tankiness for free. And like all of these just give you so much tankiness for free just for surviving the early game. It's so insane, man. So like on Sejuani, you should really be focused on like getting as much farm as possible, conceding like things that you're obviously going to lose in the early game, and then come into the mid to late game like level 9-ish with all these stats just for existing. It's really, 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 like really useful. And to outweigh this with Inspiration primary becomes a lot harder, as you can still have Conditioning and Overgrowth, but missing out on Aftershock feels pretty bad. But it is doable depending on the different team comps that you're playing with and against. So with the Resolve Tree primary, all your secondary options are pretty lackluster. You can run every single tree secondary, but none of them really offer you anything that meaningful other than Inspiration, in my opinion. So with Precision secondary, your best option is going to be Triumph and then either Attack Speed or Tenacity. With the Tenacity, even though you're going to get CC'd as Sejuani, if you have Tenacity, it's not going to fucking matter at all. Even though you're getting CC'd, you're the tank. That's your job. And if you're CC'd for less, who cares? You have a Q to buffer. You have an ult to buffer. It's literally your job to be in front and get CC'd. And to reduce that duration doesn't really matter. If you're getting hit by a Morgana binding, if it's 0.3 seconds less time before you can move, it's fine. Like, you're going to survive. You have so many stats and HP behind you that it really doesn't matter. And if you're trying to chase targets down, you still have the tools to stay on them regardless of getting CC'd. The attack speed is also, at the end of the day, just a luxury, as it's not going to like really matter for your full combo, and then it's really just going to speed up your clear speed, and that's all it does. Triumph isn't bad. With Triumphs, you take down kills and assists, restore 12% of your missing health, and grant you additional 20 gold. That one's not bad. But I think it's outweighed by other runes in the secondary tree. With Domination, you could run something like Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter, or maybe Cheap Shot and Relentless Hunter. This would be okay. It'd be fine. It's not bad, as Cheap Shot gives you access to a lot more damage than you otherwise have. If you're playing Sejuani in the jungle, might as well, man. As having that damage just puts more agency in your hand. And then with Ultimate Hunter, it's effectively just a fight more button, as you reduce the cooldown of your ult, but you can reduce the cooldown of your ult by about the same amount as Ultimate Hunter would do for most of the game, because with Ultimate Hunter, you have to stack it up. And Ultimate Hunter is based on Bounty Hunter stacks. A Bounty Hunter stack is each unique takedown on a particular champion. So you have to get multiple kills and assists on unique champions for Ultimate Hunter to be stacked up, in which the cooldown reduction on the ult that it offers is more meaningful than what you could get from just Cosmic Insight and Inspiration. So I think even that can be outweighed to a pretty meaningful degree. The thing is with Cheap Shot too is, like, yes, it adds damage, but that damage isn't going to like make or break like most lethals in the game. Because whenever you're ganking, it's mostly about your laner's damage, not your own as Sejuani. With Sorcery second, you could run the standard thing that most junglers run, which would be Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking. Nimbus Cloak giving you movement speed whenever you cast a summer spell, and then Water Walking giving you movement speed whenever you're in the river. Also giving you some AD, I think it gives Sejuani. Nimbus Cloak is going to help you stay onto targets, and that's really good. And then Water Walking is going to help you whenever you're fighting around objectives or approaching for ganks. So these are just generally really, really useful for every single jungler in the game. Sejuani's no exception, but I still think they're outweighed by Inspiration, just with the general supportive nature that Sejuani functions in. You already have engage onto a target, and it's just about comboing properly and actually hitting your ult. Nimbus Cloak will help you stay on a target, but the value of staying on a target is really, really low for Sejuani compared to other champions, as if you didn't get on them initially, staying on them doesn't really do anything. Water walking is okay, it's good. But I think all of these are outweighed by Inspiration with Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight. The most basic runes there are. But where Sejuani is a tank and effectively a support, getting your boots for free is a really big deal, as it accelerates your build path, where you can be getting less gold than the enemy jungler. The enemy jungler can be one successful kill up on you, and then you are still even with them because you're running Magical Footwear and they're not. And then through doing so, you're going to be able to complete your Cinderhulk faster, and then also complete your other items, whether it be Gargoyles or Locket, faster. And then by doing so, you're just way tankier. You really offset a lot of like the advantages that can be gained early game from junglers that would have advantage over Sejuani early game. And then by doing so, you're just evening out the gold values. And then if you're evening out the gold values, it's better for you as you come into the mid game and the late game not even at a disadvantage. With Cosmic Insight, you get 5% cooldown reduction on your abilities, summoner spells, and items. So with that 5%, it goes a long way, as it's giving you more cooldown reduction on your ult than Ultimate Hunter would be without any stacks in Ultimate Hunter. It's also going to give you more rotations of your E, your W, and your Q. It's going to help with your clear, and it's going to help whenever you're team fighting to get a second rotation of your abilities off. So I think both of these in combination just outweigh every single secondary rune. You can make really good arguments for Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking though, as they're just so convenient. But the way that Sejuani plays out, I do think that the utility in both Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight and accelerating your build path and evening out gold values with Magical Footwear, and then having more abilities, and then inevitably speeding up your clear with Cosmic Insight, just has to be like Cheap Shot, Ultimate Hunter, and then Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking. I could be wrong on those though, but I don't think I am. For the shards, I think your best bet is attack speed, armor, and then scaling health. I don't think you need the double armor, as you're not going to die to camps without it. And then with scaling armor, again, you get a little bit of value just for not losing the early game. With attack speed, it's going to help you build up your passive, and then also just clear the jungle, as primarily what you're doing is just auto-attacking and then casting your abilities. So it does speed up your clear speed. What am I saying, man? And then the armor is going to outweigh the adaptive force, as if you can tank the jungle camps better, then that's going to help you more than dealing a little bit more damage with your auto attacks and your W with the AD offered from adaptive force. The armor is also going to help you with your ganks and your 2v2s, which is a lot of what Sejuani is looking to do early, by negating the damage from minions and then probably damage from the enemy champions. Even if they're AP champions, you're still usually dealing with 2 auto attacks from 2 champions, so helps you offset a lot of damage. So that's my thoughts on Sejuani runes. They're really, really basic, but you basically just get so much free scaling. That's all this champion wants to do, is AFK farm, come into like 15 minutes with just a lot of free scaling, and the enemy jungler is going to be like, what the fuck? So yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helped you, leave a like on the video, it helps me. And if you're interested in watching me talk or play League of Legends, you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SorryNelson. Don't ask me to play Sejuani, man. Don't do it.